Credit cards are extremely unforgiving because if you don't have the money to pay off a credit card, then you probably don't have the money to buy a plane ticket, or you probably do have the money to buy a plane ticket. You probably shouldn't buy that plane ticket. But sometimes you just get that little itch. This
Mhm.
is my life. Like I said, full-time job. I'm literally just like on Capital One or Chase or American Express. Like, can I get this card? You know, you get that little itch where you're like, I need another credit card. I'm like, babe, we can get $15,000 seats for like 80,000 points. Like, come on. With my just like American Express shades on, I'm like, I have just entered the VIP lounge of like amazing.
So a lot of times when I talk to people in the points of miles game, I'm sometimes talking to veterans, people who've been in the game for 10, 20, even some cases 30 years. I literally just thought in my head a picture of Joe Barretto and put his face. And a lot of the times we get really good perspective of somebody who has been doing it for a long time, but we never really talk to somebody who kind of just got started in the game and is doing big things very, very quickly after getting started in the game. Like I was talking to Mr. Daniel right here, and you said you've pretty much just been accumulating cards since I think last July. And
Mhm.
from then, now all of a sudden you have a trip that's booked that you pretty much spent and redeemed 600,000 credit card points that you've earned the last year
Yeah.
for hopefully a pretty awesome trip. So, Daniel, thank you for being here and sharing your story today. So, I want to ask you, how does one go from basically maybe call it no points and no cards last July to now a 600,000 redemption trip that you have coming up? How do you do that?
I think you need a second full-time job, if you ask me honestly. The amount of time that was spent just like researching not just like what the right type of cards are, but what welcome offers are, what the caveats are, how to redeem flights, how to learn about flights. I had no idea what an award flight was
Hmm.
before maybe September of last year. Yeah, I think it just takes so much time, and I think like the Discord that you have, the community that you've started. I've asked so many questions and have gotten so many answers. So many people that are willing to help. And I think that's a mentality that I've embraced where it's not a solo trip, even if you are flying solo, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
There's so
Yeah.
much stuff that goes into it that you're going to have to rely on other people that have been in the game for Joe Barretto amount of years, you know, that just know things. You know, it's just like this intellectual bank account that people have, and it's all accomplished through experience. So
Definitely. And you were telling me off camera kind of like your how you're accumulating because that's a lot of points. I mean, it took me,
uh,
I would say, maybe to accumulate like 600,000 points, and this is I don't actually even know what your breakdown is. It could be, a few hundred thousand Hilton, a couple
yeah,
hundred thousand Amex, something like that. But I would say like total 600,000 points. I feel like it took me a few years
yeah,
to finally get that done. So what cards have you gotten in this
yeah.
last less than a year to accumulate that many? That's kind of wild.
Yeah. So yeah, like we talked about earlier, with my infancy into the credit card game, I kind of started at a pace to where a lot of the videos that I've seen was it's there's no real answer to how many cards you should get or could get in a certain amount
Hmm.
of time. Like we could talk about that in depth a little bit more, but
Yeah.
my mentality was I just absolutely floored it. So to be totally honest, a year ago, my it was all about like credit rehabilitation. The biggest thing for me was my available credit. That was like one of my biggest withholding factors that was holding me back. So I just started applying for like going through the pre-approval process of a bunch of cards. And to be specific, Capital One was the first credit card company or issuer, if you will, that decided to take a chance on me.
Hmm.
But the first card that I got, I was pre-approved for the Venture One
Oh no.
with no sign up bonus. I was like,
Yikes.
this website told me there's going to be points. There's no points. What the heck, you know? I think you've talked about that a couple of times where you're like, wow, I'm pre-approved and there's 40% APR and no welcome offer, you know? And then I learned that Capital One only approves people like once every 6 months or something like
Hmm.
that, to where they're very stingy. So I took that to heart based off of all the research that I did. But sometimes you just get that little itch, you know, you get that little itch where you're like, I need another credit card, or like I've been doing so much research on points and I'm like really excited. So I'm just gonna try it.
Yeah.
So I'd say like 5 months later, around like July or June, somewhere around there,
Mm.
I went through the pre-approval process again, but they approved me for the venture card.
Let's
It
go.
was,
The venture.
so that was my first, yes, that one right there. So that was my first sign up bonus like ever. I'm
Hmm.
34 years old, so
Nice.
to be at a point to where that was the first credit card that I had that actually had a sign up offer or a sign up bonus, and I knew what that meant.
Yeah.
I've had credit cards before that, but I was just like, I'm just gonna use whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So it was 75,000 points for, I
Hmm.
believe it was like 4,000 spend in 3 months, something like that. I think that's what their standard is.
Yeah.
And then from that, somebody in American Express, I would say, like I joke around to my friends, somebody made a mistake. Someone messed up and approved me. So
Really.
after that, I would say around August, I finished the venture sign up bonus, and then we jumped into the American Express ecosystem.
Ah.
And then
Which card?
from there, it was the gold card. So
Ah. So
at the time,
hmm.
yeah, this is where they had the 100,000 point sign up offer. They
Hmm.
had the Resi credit. They just changed everything, I believe.
Ah. Yeah.
So a lot of videos where this is right when the white gold came out. So I have the white gold one. Let me
Nice.
see if I still have it. Here it is.
Oh,
So
very nice.
white gold. A lot of my coworkers and all of my friends say that my gold card got coded because it's just like that.
It
It's
does look
that pale
sickly, yeah.
gold.
It
Yeah.
does a little sickly.
Um, yeah, so we have 75K from Capital One, and then like if you include all the spend in Capital One, it was more than that.
Hmm.
And then the gold card is essentially what took off my points because as soon as I dipped my toe in the American Express ecosystem, it was literally like the grass is greener on the other side. Like the app is essentially, I was like, I could just text people. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, right.
So a lot of people that have been in the credit card game longer, like there's a lot of videos where they're like, yeah, the service is like diminished and things like that. And I'm over here with my just like American Express shades on. I'm like, I have just entered the VIP lounge of like amazing because it's like, tell me how you contact anybody from, Bank of America. You don't,
True. You
you
don't.
know?
Yeah.
Uh, so that was 100,000 points. And
Nice.
after that is where I became self-proclaimed the points and miles guy because that's when my full-time job for credit cards actually started.
Ah, okay.
So I would talk about credit cards so much at work, and I would talk
Mm,
about credit cards so much with my friends that they would be like, "Tell me a little bit more about what's going on here."
hmm.
And then, long story short, I probably had about 80,000 points from referral bonuses. So
Whoa.
I had like anywhere between like 6 to 9 people all get cards. And then before we get like too deep into that, I always preface with like the first thing that I learned is you need to get a card that actually fits your needs. So
Hmm.
like my bad habits, I'm not putting my bad habits on you. I need to make sure that like I educate people and I tell people how to do it correctly.
Hmm.
Because if you don't naturally spend this type of money in 6 months, then please do not get the card. Like I don't want you to be in debt.
Yeah.
So it's not something where I'm like, get points, it's a great card. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like but it's just like the way that you talk about cars, like people just start gravitating in your direction and they just really start, they're like, what? Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm very interested. Let me learn more. And then they
Hmm.
realize like there is a card out there for me. And then a lot of times it just happens to be the American Express Gold card because
Right.
everybody eats, everybody gets food, everybody gets groceries. So if you combine the 100K from the welcome offer, and then if you, I'll lowball it like 70K from referrals,
Hmm.
and then learned about Rakuten. So
Hmm.
my girlfriend already has used Rakuten, so we kind of just shifted a little bit of focus. So we converted from
Oh,
cashback to member rewards points.
nice.
Um, and then if I look at like my lifetime points, which is over the last like 7 months, I'm sitting at like 40,000 Rakuten
Wow.
points. Um,
Hmm.
and I don't know if that includes what we're supposed to get this coming quarter,
Hmm.
because we're getting another payout in like May or something like that. And I have
Hmm.
another 15,000 points just waiting to be sent back to me. And I would say around October is when I got the elevated offer for the platinum card. So that's where my life literally took off in style. So it was 175,000 point welcome offer. So one of my friends referred me, so it was like an elevated referral offer.
Oh,
At the
damn.
time, I thought the max was like 125 or 150. So literally,
Hmm.
like I was watching videos like you have to close the tab and you have to reopen it and you got to go private and you got to go
Yeah.
incognito. So I opened an incognito and then I tapped on the link and the first thing that I saw was like 175,000 points and
Damn.
my jaw was like the mask where my jaw hits the floor and then just rolls off the
Right.
table, you know?
Right.
Um, so I text my friend, I'm like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. So I think if you add all that up, I'm probably close to somewhere around like 400K, maybe
Hmm.
450K at that point. And then we added the Blue Business Plus, so for my catch-all
Hmm.
card. And then this past January, I this is where someone made a big mistake because I've been denied for this card. I believe you've been a lot of people have been denied for this card. A lot of people want this card. But the
Hmm.
Venture X, I was like,
Uh,
who in their right mind would approve me for this? It's actually a very interesting story because on Friday, one Friday, I went through the pre-approval tool. This
mhm.
is my life. Like I said, full-time job. I'm literally just like on Capital One or Chase or American Express. Like, can I get this card? So I was on Capital One on a Friday, and then they're like, "Sorry, the balance on your revolving account's too high. You just recently opened one. Like, you
Mm.
have too many cards, stuff like that." And then on the Monday, so literally the following Monday, I did the exact same thing, and they're like, "You're approved," and
Wow.
I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" So that's another
Jeez.
75K. Um, And then the last part that really took me over the edge is I learned about the offers page for Capital One, the redesigned offers page.
Mm.
I've been meaning to go from Verizon to AT&T for such a long time. I get a pretty solid discount through work. I get 50% off. One of the offers through Capital One was if you create an account or add a line, they will give you 20,000 points or 20,000 miles.
Damn.
So I drive to my parents' house and I'm like, Mom, we're doing a thing.
Wow.
So it was a very painful process because it was one at a time. So I essentially had to create the AT&T account. I moved my line over. I got the first 20K points, and then in consecutive order, I just went through Capital One, logged into AT&T, and then 20K, 20K, 20K.
Damn.
So
So now that you've come through it, how are going forward? So how are all these cards kind of working into your grand plan here? So you have a whole trip that's 600,000 points you're redeeming. So where are you going? What points are you using? What flights? What hotels?
So I will say I redeemed 600 points, but it's technically for two trips. But essentially, the first trip that I'm going on, me and my girlfriend are going to Bali. That's going to be this August.
Oh wow,
Um, so
nice.
my first ever like big redemption was Singapore Airlines, so two business class seats over
Nice.
to Bali. So we're stopping over in Singapore. I've heard a lot of great things about that airport. I'm
Yeah.
super excited about that airport. I might be more excited for the airport than actually Bali. We'll
Yeah.
for people like us, I don't know. So it was two business class seats there. I think it was like 110,000 points per person. So
Mm,
220,000 points to get there. I think like that's like their standard redemption. As long as you're not waitlisted.
mm.
I looked recently just to see if there's anything different, and everything has a wait list. So I'm like, cool. I'm
Wow.
really happy that I booked that. But so this was before I knew about Point.me. This was before I knew about Seats.aero.
Oh
So
wow.
I literally just went on Singapore Airlines app. I think we've all had like the incredibly painful process of I'm going to download every single app
Yeah.
for every single airline. or go on every single airline website. I'm going to create an account. I'm going to save the password. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then, so that's phase one. And then phase two is I'm going to go on every single credit card app now, and I'm going to link every single airline once more, you know?
Yeah.
Um, it was through Singapore Airlines. That was done majority with my Capital One Venture bonus and
Nice.
my American Express Gold bonus,
Hmm.
plus like some of the referrals. So it was about 220,000 points.
Nice.
Um, and then on the way back, all of my research said book one-way flights for more flexibility. I would say
Hmm.
that this itinerary on the way back has probably changed about like 5 times at this point.
Yeah.
Um, but my girlfriend has a really good friend in Singapore, so we decided to
Hmm.
cut our Bali trip one day sooner so that we can spend 3 days in Singapore.
Nice.
Um,
Hmm.
so, uh, and then I think this was back in February. I don't, maybe you recall, but Singapore Airlines had like an anniversary or like an accomplishment where they had like 10 million travelers.
Oh. Hmm.
It popped up in a couple discords and on their website, and I got an email. But lo and behold, they were offering 25%, or no, it was 20 or 25% off of redemption award bookings. And I'm like, you
Oh.
have got to be kidding me.
It's
Um,
perfect.
and the reason we found this out, or that I found this out, was I was on point.me, and it said like transfer, you only need this many points. And I was like, wait a
Oh,
second,
I see.
the math isn't adding up right now. So shout
Ah.
out to points.me for this one.
Yeah.
Um, but I was able to book two premium economy seats back from Singapore directly to San Francisco, my home airport.
Hmm.
And originally, I think it's like 84,000 points per person. I only
Hmm.
paid like 60,000 per person, like
Not bad.
62,000 points per person.
Hmm.
Um, so if you total all that up, plus like the flights from Bali to Singapore, which I also booked with the 20% off redemption. Thank you.
Nice.
Oh my God, love it. It probably totaled up to probably around close to like 370 to 400,000 points
Wow.
somewhere. Yeah, like
Jeez.
350,000 points. Yeah.
Okay. Huh.
Um, so I would love to talk about how amazing the business class seats are for Singapore Airlines. But I've only watched videos. Like the amount of videos that I've seen, I'm always like, honey, look, this is what our seats
This
are
is where
gonna
we're
look like.
going.
This is us. Yeah, yeah. Um,
We all
so
do it. Yep.
yeah, just get
Huh.
like way too into it. So that's trip number one. As far as the
Mhm.
hotels, I think to be totally honest and transparent, I paid cash for all the
Oh,
hotels. Um,
sacrilegious.
yeah, I know. I'm not at that level, like the way that you talk about like the Hilton card and the Marriott card, and
Yeah.
I don't have enough knowledge, and
Hmm.
I don't think that I have enough time in between all my other credit cards, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
to get these ones. So that's
Okay.
trip number one. And then
Nice.
trip number two is kind of like a saga because one of the I would say, if you ask me, like one of my regrets, one
Hmm.
of my biggest regrets is going into the transfer portal and seeing that a specific partner has this crazy transfer bonus.
Hmm.
So we're talking about Virgin Atlantic. So late last year, Virgin Atlantic had a 40% transfer bonus, and
Hmm.
I'm like, honey, we're doing it. Um, and and then up until that point, I'm like, okay, I was good with Seats.Aero. I was good with all of that. So I'm like,
Hmm.
where can we fly through Virgin specifically,
Hmm.
like direct flights, business, premium?
Yeah.
So France was on that list, Rome was on that list, London. But the reason why I really decided to do it was because my girlfriend's from Vietnam. Her whole family lives there. And
Hmm.
from San Francisco to Vietnam, you can actually get direct flights through
Hmm.
Virgin Atlantic.
Oh.
So I was like, why not? Like we want to go there, you know?
Yeah.
So we have four options. We could even go to Amsterdam, you know?
Yeah.
So I transferred 165,000 points. So this was like the rest of my platinum bonus and whatever else I had. And
Yeah.
then it gave me about 240 Virgin Atlantic points.
Yeah.
Um, and then so the saga begins with February, this February. One of the things that I realized is you can book ANA tickets with Virgin Atlantic.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh my God, I've wanted to go to Japan for the longest time. And I'm just like looking up all the costs of these seats. And I'm like, babe, we can get $15,000 seats for like 80,000 points. Like, come on. I didn't know how difficult it was going to be. So with my research, you can only book 330 days in advance by calling them. And I
Hmm.
swear to you, I feel like there was somebody that was reading my mind, and it was day 331. Day 331. There was two seats available, and then midnight they
Oh,
disappear right before I can just
gee.
scoop them up. And I'm like, this is heartbreaking. This is
Ugh.
absolutely heartbreaking. Um, so we as in me, we decided to go back to our original plan of having a Euro trip. So we used
Hmm.
the Virgin Atlantic tickets or flights or points to book business class seats. So we booked round trip flights from San Francisco to London. It was
Hmm.
for both ways. It was 80,000 points, 82,000 points
Hmm.
per way.
Nice.
So after everything, it was about 164K. I read about the taxes and fees, and good Lord, my friends, the taxes and fees there were not that bad. I paid $500 in taxes and fees, but it was still justifiable based off of just like if I were to pay cash.
Yeah.
But on the way back, man, it was pretty steep. I don't know what goes into those taxes and fees, but that's another thing where I'm like, do I wish I would take it back? Probably not.
Hmm.
I still look at the cash value, and I'm like, well, $4,000 off. you know,
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
um, yeah, it was about $1,300 in taxes and fees, which I mean,
Damn.
it's pretty
Hmm.
steep. The value of those points is still pretty good. Plus
Hmm.
the 40% bonus. Like it it made me feel a lot better because I still have 60,000 points left over after doing
Yeah.
all of that. So
Yeah.
now I'm like, okay, who wants to come with me? There's like $9,000 economy. There's 16, or sorry, 9,000 point economy. There's 16,000 point premium economy. Like, who else
Hmm.
wants to come with us? So
Right.
the ends kind of justify the means there. But so that's just London. We'll take a couple of planes in business class because it was only like 8,000 points per person,
Hmm.
from Paris to Zurich, from Zurich to Amsterdam.
Hmm.
Um, so about 40,000 points there. And then
Yeah.
my personal favorite, from Amsterdam back to London, I have read so much about the nightmare that is that airport, where people are like, you need more than 3 hours. And
Hmm.
that's exactly how long the layover was. I was like, I don't want to get stuck because at this point, my work is going to expect me on the next day, and I don't want to be that guy.
Oh
So
no.
we decided to fly in a day early, so we would have one more
Hmm.
day in London, so that I don't have to worry about all the myths and legends of people not taking their liquids out of their water bottles, and then they have to get like searched for 30 minutes each. And I'm just like, yeah, that's just like, I guess that's a choice that I make because I'm so new to the travel game. I haven't experienced any of it.
Hmm.
Where if you ask me like United States travel, I'm like, yeah, I'll show up an hour before. I got
Yeah.
TSA pre-check. I got clear.
Right.
Like there's nothing happening. But if I'm out and about, or if I'm abroad, I'm like, I don't know what to expect. Is three
Right.
hours enough? I got no idea.
Man,
So
well, I think you're doing it so amazingly. I think you're taking all of the knowledge that everybody on, all the folks that we watch on YouTube is giving, and I think you're doing it the right way, being cautious where you need to be, pushing
yeah.
and pulling where you need to be. That's amazing. I guess just closing out for so you've done way more than most people do in their first year in the points and miles game. So if you were to give advice to anybody who's just like you, who you said you're 34, just doing your, just really kind of getting into the game, what would your advice be to somebody who wants to get into the credit card game, you think?
I would probably say do your research first. One of my really good friends, his name is Stefan. He had a mentor. He had his father. His father is like very high up in the credit card game. If you
Hmm,
don't have someone like that in your life, I would find that someone.
hmm,
Because he's 22. I think he just turned 22. And he had like at before, like when we first met, he had cards that I could only hope and dream of getting. Like as I'm getting denied for like whatever card, he's like, yeah, I got my Venture X, I got my Sapphire Reserve,
Jeez.
things like that. So I think if you want a head start, I would get a mentor, do your
Mm,
research before you get blinded by sign up bonuses, you get blinded
mm,
by, potential trips that you want to go on. Um, that's like the biggest form of advice that I can give anybody because I've experienced what it looks like when you have the American Express sunglasses on,
mm.
and you're just 100 miles an hour the whole way.
Yeah.
Um, but also, it took me 34 years of my life to get here, whereas for him, it probably took him maybe a couple years, maybe 3 years, right?
Yeah.
It took me so much time and effort to undo a lot of the bad habits that I had in the past. And I had to
Mm,
undo all of that before I started with the good. So that would be
mm,
advice number two. If you don't have your affairs in order, if you don't have your finances in order, a credit card is not going to solve it for you. A trip is not going to solve it for you. It's kind of like when you're living with your partner and you need to break up, the relationship needs to end, right? But instead of that, you get a dog, right? Or you get some type of animal. I feel like we've all been there. Like
yeah.
a lot of people can relate with that. That's actually my previous relationship, just saying.
Uh,
Um,
Hope
but
she's not watching.
yeah, it will be all right. But yeah, you have to make sure that you take care of the past before you can take care of your present and future. Because
Mm,
if you still have these bad habits, it's going to be amplified with a credit card because credit cards are extremely unforgiving. At the end of the day, like it's a line of credit, it's your responsibility. And if you don't have that responsibility going into it, then because you have to pay off a charge card or $3,000 on your statement credit, that's not going to force you to fix your life. That's going to amplify your bad habits. I would say force yourself to fix your life first, and then once you're at a point to where you can be responsible, then you can jump into a credit card that you wanted. Because if you don't have the money to pay off a credit card, then you probably don't have the money to buy a plane ticket, or you probably do have the money to buy a plane ticket. You probably shouldn't buy that plane ticket.
absolutely.
So yeah, you gotta take care of yourself first, and then you use these credit cards as a mean to live your best life, right? You find credit cards that match you. You don't match yourself to these credit cards. You don't change your whole lifestyle to fit the need of a credit card because that is essentially how everyone gets in big trouble, right? When people start having a gold card and they start going to Five Guys or they start going to Shake Shack. I've never gone to Shake Shack before. I never will go to Shake Shack. Like it's like those small decisions right there where I think it's a compound of those little choices that just turn into like big problems. So yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree with all of
yeah.
that. I couldn't have said it better myself. I love it.
So
Fix yourself first, set up the foundation, then enjoy the good. That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Daniel, I want to thank you for your time today, sir. Appreciate you
Thank
hanging out
you.
with me and talking about sharing your story. If you guys want to help Daniel out take more and more vacations, his credit card referral links will be down in the pinned comment. And if you also want to share your story, you can fill out that same form and then maybe end up here and we can inspire others as well. So thank you again, Daniel. And then thank you for everybody who is watching all the way to the end. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. It was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you.